Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today we're looking at SmartSync. We've got 45 minutes available to talk to you about that. My name's Tom Jeffrey. I'm one of the education and media technicians here at CaseWare UK. I'm joined by Anthony Launchbury, one of our EMT consultants, and also the EMT manager, Georgie Walker. Georgie and Tony will be taking you through the presentation today, and I'll be on hand to answer any questions that you have. So if you have any questions, please pop them in the question field in the GoToWebinar control panel. There'll be opportunity throughout the webinar to submit your questions there, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And we'll have a couple of Q&A sessions, particularly one at the end. If we don't get back to you with an answer to your question, don't worry, we'll get back to you directly after the webinar, and also we'll publish a Q&A document on the knowledge base with a recording of the webinar. As I say, if you've got any questions throughout, please submit them as soon as you can, and then we'll get a chance to line them up to answer them for you during the session. So I'll hand you over to Tony now, and we'll go to the agenda.
Hi, good afternoon, guys. And welcome to the webinar. I'm also joined by Georgie Walker, as Tom mentioned earlier. Georgie's going to be helping us out with the questions and also as we go through the presentation. Just to get us going, on the agenda front, what we're going to be looking at mainly at the start is just the simple basics. How do we get going with SmartSync? What's it about? How do we use it? Again, getting started with downloading a local SmartSync file and so on. Then we're going to be moving forward. When we get through to the conflicts, and Georgie, you're going to be helping us along with that side.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everybody. So we're going to work together on the same file, Tony and myself, working through various areas within the engagement file. And so we can demonstrate to you how it works in practice. So if two people are working in the same document, how CaseWare will handle that. We will then move on to removing an engagement from the cloud. So we'll go through a demonstration of that and then move on to the Q&A section at the end. So I'll hand back to Tony now.
Excellent. Thanks, Georgie. Yeah, with the Q&A section at the end, we'll stick to that. But what we want to do as well is promote questions throughout the webinar. We get a big rush at the end of the webinars where we get lots of questions in. So today what we're going to do is, as we get through certain sections like downloading or conflicts, we're just going to leave it open. So if you do want to ask a question, try and keep it within those sections, and that way we can make sure we get everyone's questions answered within the webinar, and hopefully the questions that you guys are asking other people will find useful as well, so everyone benefits all around. Okay, so to get us going then, what we'll do first of all is to ask you a question. So I'm going to quickly hand you over to Tom just to raise a couple of polls. We'll do it quite quickly. Just let us know what your thoughts are, and as soon as we've got those results in, we'll get straight on with the presentations. So over to you, Tom.
Thanks, Tony. Yep, so we've got a couple of polls that we're going to run quickly. So the first one, pretty straightforward. We'd just like to know if you're already using SmartSync. Okay, thanks very much. I'm just going to close the poll and we'll put the results up on the screen. So a bit of a mixture actually. So 40% already using it, 60% not. So that's very useful feedback. Thank you very much. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the second poll. Again, straightforward yes or no. Were you aware that you could use SmartSync to access accounts files as well as audit files? Because we know a lot of clients use it for audit, but you can also use it for accounts.
Guys, well, just to let you know, I mean, the questions we're asking, the reason we're asking them is just so we know where to go with the webinar and what we need to really focus on. So I really appreciate you getting those opinions over to us.
Okay, so got an exact split there, 50-50 on that one. There's quite a few of you that are aware that you can use it for accounts as well. So I'll close the poll now and I'll hand back to Tony and we'll get started with the presentation.
Brilliant, thank you very much, Tom, and yeah, thank you very much for everyone just taking part in that quickly. It does help us obviously with the direction of the webinar and what we need to focus on as we go through. All right, so what is SmartSync? For the ones of you that aren't using SmartSync yet, predominantly what SmartSync is a powerful bolt-on onto working papers, which allows us to work with our CaseWare data in a slightly different way. Now, what we're going to throw some graphics on the screen here where we've got some managers and the team. So the team could be your audit team, your accounts team. Now, what SmartSync allows us to do is to have one file and to let anyone access it and work on it simultaneously with any changes reflected from the audit team onto the manager's file and vice versa. Okay. Now, sounds very much like you're working in your office on your own local server, which it kind of is. It's very, very similar. The difference is that we don't need to be in our local office, as we'll see. So traditionally is that we'd be working in our office. We'd be working on that CaseWare file. Now, once we set up our cloud or CaseWare cloud instance, we'll receive a URL. So it'd be like something along the lines of uk.casewarecloud.com / and then your firm name. Now, once we've got that set up and a few other bits which we'll go through as we get through the webinar, you will publish your file to the CaseWare cloud. Now, what that means is that we can access the file on our local server, and at the same time, we can also get access to that file through a cloud. So if we didn't have access to your local server, everyone can continue working effectively and updating the file, and any changes from one person's file would then sync into another person's machine. Okay, so how it works is that the metadata from that file is transmitted to the CaseWare cloud server, which is a server based over in Ireland, the part of the Amazon banker servers. And the information is nice and secure, and it transmits back and forth between those users' machines. Okay, so it works quite smartly. There's not a lot we need to do with setup. However, just to give you a bit of an idea, what we will need is we will need a SmartSync version of CaseWare working papers. Okay, you'll need the Collaborate service enabled. That's what we refer to the cloud instance as, the Collaborate service. So that's your uk.casewarecloud.com / and then your firm name address. Then what we'll need is some user profiles, permissions, and all importantly, a laptop or a computer to work from. Okay, so that's all we really need to get going. Now, just to show you what the setup will be like, there's other setup, which is more of an implementation side within the cloud and your firm settings and so on. But just to show you the basics that a user would experience, just so you know what they need to be set up. So what we've got is some demonstration files. Now, today what we're going to do is we've got a couple of recorded demonstrations, and we've also got a couple of live demonstrations as well. So Jules, you mentioned earlier that we're going to have the live demonstrations when we look at conflicts in the cloud. As you may be a new user to SmartSync, you might not know what conflict is yet, but don't worry, we'll explain that as we go through. For now though, what we'll do is just move on to this demonstration on how to publish. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see that slide, and it should start playing now. Now, effectively, we're going to start from the beginning, the opening up of CaseWare working papers. So we'd go through, we'd open up CaseWare working papers, and from there you'll see that within the SmartSync version, we've got options on the left-hand side, and we can access those in exactly the same way. The difference is we've got CaseWare Cloud there. So we'd select CaseWare Cloud. From this section here, all we need to do to get going is to tick the integrate with CaseWare Cloud. What this will do a couple of bits. It will build in some additional tools within the working papers installation itself. And also what it will do is allow us to go through and type in our server address. So this could be an IT standpoint job or a user job, just to enter in that URL of uk.casewarecloud. Now, what you're going to see on the screen is slightly different to what you'd be typing in, because I'm typing in the CaseWare training server address. Okay, from that point, you just go through, you'd select OK. Once you've pressed OK, then what it's going to do is drive us on to log into the cloud. Okay, now from the log into the cloud, mine, and as you can see on the screen here, it's just going to load up, and my user credentials are already set up within there. Okay, so training 101 caseware.co.uk is already pre-populated. You as your firm can determine whether this information is retained, how long you sign in for. So as standard on the CaseWare training server, you'll be logged in for 3,000 hours, but your firm can determine exactly how long that needs to be. Is it 7 hours for the working day, or whatever it needs to be? Okay, so that is a decision that your firms can make and set up within your cloud instance. Okay, so once you go through and you sign in, it's just going to go through and open up the file as you usually would see it. there's no real difference at that stage. Okay. Now, within the file itself, let's pause it again quickly. You'll get two cloud buttons, which might be confusing at first because they both say cloud. They're both very close to each other. But this cloud here is a button that gets loaded in or created as soon as we tick the integrate with CaseWare Cloud within the tools and options. Okay. And we have this new button built in. What that does is it allows us to launch our cloud instance, but within CaseWare. Now, some of you may already know this, some of you may not, but this screen you can see here with this dashboard, that's a HTML viewer. So what we can do within CaseWare is we can visit websites. So in that term, we can visit your version of CaseWare Cloud. The other cloud button, as you'll see as the video plays, it allows us to use all the tools and utilities linked to the cloud, i.e. publish, repairs, and so on. So once that loads through, we're going to see the cloud options and what's available. What we're going to focus on first of all will be looking at the publish. So on the left hand side there, you can see the publish button. We'll select that and it'll give us the first option to go through and publish to the CaseWare Cloud. Now the screen here, the publish to server, it can be pre-populated with the entity name. If the entity name in the cloud or the cloud entity is being linked to your desktop file, through the engagement properties, it would automatically pick up the entity details here. Okay, I haven't done this in this instance. I'm going to show you that in a moment, but for now all you need to do is just type in your entity name. So go into the search field and just type in this case ABC, and that'll come up with the options that are available. So there's two there, and again just go through and select one. Once you do that, select OK. Now, once you select OK, what CaseWare will start doing is loading that metadata up into the cloud, and you'll see down on the bottom right hand side here, where my mouse is circling, it should zoom in a second, you should see it saying publishing. Okay, there's three stages. There's publishing, there's syncing, and there's online. Publishing is obviously sending the information to the cloud. Syncing is just double checking your file to the cloud version, and then online is everything's okay and we're good to start working. So that should be pretty quick from this side. It does depend on how large your file sizes are, but we'll talk about that more as we go through. Okay, so I did mention the engagement properties and some additional setup we can do within there. Okay, so within the engagement properties, and as you can see on the screen now, you're going to have slight different field within the name and address tab. You've got cloud entity. That's where we can link it to ABC Motor Company. So we can link that to our cloud entity. And from that point here, we get a couple of options that are quite useful. So the first one is that checkbox here for automatically syncing engagement properties with the cloud. Now, I would always recommend that users select that because in that way we only need to change the company name or company address in one place rather than in two, which is always a benefit. And you've also got the auto published after integrating. I mentioned the file sizes there and earlier in publishing, and it takes longer the larger the file size. As soon as we create the file, that's the smaller the file size we're really going to get. So it's probably advisable at that early stage just to auto publish the file, and we know it's in the cloud immediately. And that way, as and when we build in additional documents and the file size gets a little bit larger, then it doesn't take so long to upload to the cloud because it's already done. Okay. All right, so that is a little bit on the setup and how to publish the file. I just want to see if we've got any questions in at this stage. So Tom, have we got any questions coming up so far?
Yeah. We have got a question actually come in that sort of fits in with the section we were just looking at. So everyone I work with either publishes to the cloud when the file is created, or they just publish it before they go out to the client. Does it matter which you use?
Okay, it doesn't matter if you do it before, like when you first create the file, or before you go out to clients. The only thing I would say is it's probably best practice to do it before, well, a little bit sooner than a couple of days before you go to clients, just in case you get any problems with internet connectivity. You don't really want to be downloading files out on site. You can do, there's no problem with that. You can use tethering, but it's sod's law. As soon as you need tethering to work, you can guarantee it doesn't work. So it's always safer just to make sure you've got that file published earlier on, and it's quicker to do it when you first create the file. So I'd recommend when you first create the file, but you can do it at any point. But obviously that if you're out the clients and you're using, say, a weak Wi-Fi or tethering, then you're running the risk of not getting access to your file. Once you've downloaded that file, it makes no difference if you've got the internet, because of the way a SmartSync works, as you'll see as we go through this presentation. So yeah, hopefully that answers that question.
Thanks, Lee. We have got a question coming about the login duration, but we'll pop that in the Q&A at the end, and we'll ask that first when we get there.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Tom, and thanks guys for the questions. All right, so moving on, we'll move through the slides. We've also got a, oh, there we go. We'll move straight through the slides poll there. Demonstration on how to download the local sync copy. So I'm just trying to rearrange I've got a few other bits popping up on my screen that you guys hopefully can't see. I go to webinar applications, so I'm just trying to move them out of the way. Next we're going to do is looking at how to download a SmartSync copy. More likely is the case is you'll be downloading the SmartSync copy rather than uploading, because we only need one person to upload, whereas you might, if you're working on an audit, have 6 or 7 people downloading that file. So let's have a look at that now and how we're going to work. Now, this again is a pre-recorded demonstration, so I was going to talk you through the presentation on screen. Again, like before, feel free to ask any questions as we go through. Now, just to start this off, again, we're back to the beginning, okay? So we haven't got CaseWare open, so the first thing we need to do is go through and open up CaseWare working papers. Now, earlier on, I already alluded to the SmartSync option that we've got within working papers there. So you can see it just on the left-hand side. You've got your places, and then you've got recent files, computer, and SmartSync. Now, from SmartSync here, what you'll see is it's another way of opening files. Now, recent files are files on our machine, computer, obviously ones on the local, SmartSync server. These are ones that we can download if we want to. We've got the rights to access these from our CaseWare Cloud instance, but they're not on our machine yet, okay? Now, to help us find our files, we can filter. We can also sort through the file name option, as we're going to see in a second. We can flip through, say, from file name to entity name. What this does is it helps us locate the files we've got access to. Now, I'd imagine most of you will have a naming convention for your files, so it may be ABC 101 31 12 19. Just to say that's the company reference and that's the year end. So changing by right clicking on that header there and changing to file name, it makes it a lot easier for me to find my files that I'm working on. So potentially that will help you too. Now, as you go through, this screen can get busier the more access. So please use the search filter as well. Once you've found the file you want, double click and CaseWare will start downloading that file for you. Okay, so it's pretty simple to get access to those files. Now, the recent files lists, as we'll see as well, as we'll go through in a moment, will also give us access to those files. Now, before we get there though, just a quick note, and some of you probably might be thinking this, what happens if we try to download a file more than once? In previous versions of CaseWare, you could download multiple copies onto your machine. But now within CaseWare working papers, if we try and access that file twice, then what CaseWare is going to do is provide the message you can see on the screen now. It's going to prompt us to open the one we've already got on our machine or cancel opening the file at all. Okay, so it makes it a little bit cleaner, stops us downloading multiple files onto that local C drive. Again, just easier to manage the data. Okay, so that's what will happen if we try to download a copy twice and we've already got one on a machine. Now, the easiest way to access the files, as mentioned, would be for the SmartSync server. But if we've already downloaded them, then it will be available on your SmartSync, on your recent files list there. As you can see, here we've got a little icon. That icon has got a green circle on it. That green circle is the sync icon. That means that we've got a downloaded sync copy on this machine. The file underneath, or that's just a standard file without the sync icon. Okay. So that's how you access the SmartSync files from your local machine, but you can also access them from the cloud. So you can log onto your cloud instance. Once you've gone through and logged on, we can then go through and start downloading the files in the cloud as well, as we'll see. We're going to go through the whole cloud here. If you're new to that, then just point you in the direction of another webinar. But as you can see here, I can scroll down and I can get access to that file. I can click on that file. And then from that point, I'll have an option on the right hand side if I click on the 3 dotted button to open a sync copy, which I can select. Then the powers of the computers will then prompt me to go through and open up CaseWare. Okay, so they're all the ways we can go through and open up our files. So hopefully that's nice and clear and straightforward. There's not a lot to it, so we got through it pretty quickly, which is good. Tom, again, questions wise, is there any questions that anyone wanted to run past us at that stage?
Relating to downloading copies, are there any restrictions on how many copies we can download?
No, no, good question. There's not any restrictions on how many you can download. The only restriction on is who can download those files. So as mentioned, you can restrict access to certain individuals through the cloud from downloading certain entity files. Also, what you'll need to do is make sure you've got a cloud user license. So if you've got 10 cloud user license, then 10 people can download those SmartSync files. So they're the only two things that will really restrict how many of those files that you can download. So yeah, no restrictions apart from the licensing and how many staff you've got, and if you've got the appropriate access rights. Okay. Were there any more at all?
Just a quick one on while we're in that area. Can the local files be deleted automatically after a few days of not being used?
Okay, really good question. I mean, CaseWare doesn't provide the tools to automatically delete files because the files are going to be stored on your file explorer within Windows structure. But what we can do is the IT departments can run rules on folders where you can pre-designate your CaseWare files to be saved, and on those folder locations, your IT professionals will be able to say, okay, automatically we can delete that file after 10 days of inactivity or 20 days and so on. So there's certain functionality that your IT professionals can do working alongside CaseWare. But good question. And if anyone wants any guidance on that as well, then feel free to put a question in question field and we can arrange a call maybe after the webinar just to discuss that. Okay.
Thanks, Tony.
Excellent, no trouble at all. All right then. We're going to move on to this, and this is where we're going to invite Georgie back just to have a chat about conflicts and to run through the demonstration on showing you guys how to deal with conflicts in the file. But before we do, just quickly, just probably best to give you a bit of idea what conflicts are and let you know when you're going to see them. Conflicts within CaseWare files, simply the way it works, we've all got a copy of that SmartSync file from the clouds. Okay, it is a copy of that file and they sync. So the changes from my file would sync up to the cloud and then down to Georgie's file and vice versa. What can happen is if we're working on the same document at the same time, then obviously if we're working on the same document, that information goes up to the cloud at the same time, then CaseWare cloud's like, okay, what's the main version? Now, when we look at case view documents, there's some safeguards in place because CaseWare has read-write access to those documents, and through the powers of the internet, we can tell who's in that document at any stage, as long as they're online and have internet connection. If they're working with Excel or say external documents, file types like Windows and so on, you're likely to see these little icons pop up. So synchronization conflicts have occurred, and you'll get this little warning triangle on the documents. Now, what we're going to run through is just a few steps with you guys, just to let you know how you should deal with them, how the utility works, and so on. So if we invite Georgie back to help us with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my CaseWare file. Georgie, have you got your CaseWare file open?
Yeah, I downloaded a SmartSync copy earlier today.
Excellent. All right, so we can tell if Georgie has downloaded a copy. So hopefully now you guys can see my CaseWare file on your screen. Now this isn't pre-recorded, this is a live file. Within the live file, we can do, there's several ways we can see if anyone's in this file, okay? If you're working in a downloaded copy, we can go to File, View, and we can show users over here, okay? So that will show me all the other users that are within this file. So that works exactly the same way as if you were all working on the server. Okay, so again, that's just that nice functionality. The difference is we're told that it's online with SmartSync session. So it's not local, it's online. The other way is to go to cloud, and we've got properties over here. And this will tell me exactly how many files we have downloaded. So how many sync files have we got, or how many linked files have we got? So here we've got 3. We've got one on my pretend server, which will be, again, this top one. And we've got this one down below. And we've got this one that Georgie's working on. Okay, so we've got the 3 copies in this example. So we've got a server version, we've got my version, we've got Georgie's version. Okay, now So we can close that down. What we're going to do first of all, I think it's just to sorry, excuse me, is to show you how case view documents handle being used at the same time. Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm going to jump into documents. Georgie, would you mind scrolling down to the G section, and we'll open up the stocks work program. Just let me know when you've done that, and I'll open up it as well.
Okay, yep, that's open.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, so if I open up StopWorks program 2, what we should be seeing here is that because I've got internet connection, and I know my file's online, because if I go down to the bottom right hand side here, can you see that online? Okay, so I'm connected to the internet, my file's online, and because of that, and because Georgie's in the same document that I'm in, CaseWare is going, okay, Georgie's in this file, currently on the TR Georgie machine. Do you want to open up as a read only? So I can say yes, and I can open up as a read only, or I can say no, and close this down. So that kind of stops any chance of a conflict occurring, and obviously gives us that little safety net that everything's going to work out, be fine. Now, if I wasn't connected to the internet, so if I go, so I select no here, I'm going to close this down, minimize that, and I'm going to go down to online over here. I'm going to mark my machine as offline. So we're going to go through and mark us offline. And now if I open up the stocks work program now, again, just to point out, it says offline down the bottom right. If I go to the work program now, it's not going to open up straight away. It's going to ask us a question, say, okay, we're unable to obtain exclusive access. Okay, so CaseWare can't see that if anyone else is in the machine or on this file because we've got no internet connection. So to be safe, do you want to open it up in read only, or do you want to open up normally? Now, if we were to open up normally, this could potentially lead to a conflict if Georgie was in the file at the same time, and if I save changes and Georgie save changes, okay? Because CaseWare can't see that Georgie's in it at the moment because there's no internet. So let me close this down and that down. I'm going to turn mine back onto online. So just remove the tick there. It should say syncing again. Excellent, online, and good to go. So I'm going to move that down as well. Now, if I go back through, if we just have a look, let's have a look at the, say, the obsolete stock. Georgie, can you go through and open up obsolete stock for me? And I'll go through and open it up as well. These are just dummy documents, by the way, guys. There's no information in these.
Right, it's opened up G50, the Excel worksheet.
Perfect, excellent. So I've opened up my one, and everyone can see that there's nothing in there. So I'm going to close mine down. Georgie, on your one in the top left-hand corner, do you want to write a little message or put a comment in that Excel document? And let me know when you've done it. If you press save, once you've made that change, just let us know that you've made that change.
Okay, I've sent you a little message in the document.
Thank you very much. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to open up. Hopefully give it a second now. It's not instant because it does depend on your internet speed, okay? But it's been a few seconds now. So if I open up, what we should be seeing is that Georgie's, there we go. As if by magic, Georgie's work, please keep, okay? Now, what can happen at this point though, is CaseWare can't tell if myself and Georgie are in a document at the same time because we can't get those access rights from Microsoft. So what CaseWare has to do is something slightly different to make sure that we've got a safety net to make sure we retain everyone's work. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go through and say Anthony's work, his work. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete Georgie's work, even though she's asked me to keep it, and I can't spell my name, so let's get rid of that G. Okay, Georgie, do you want to save and close yours, and I'll save and close mine?
Yep, all saved, closed, and I'm out.
Perfect, excellent. All right, so on my one here, I've got a little bubble popped on my screen. Did you receive a little synchronization conflict occurred on your screen, Georgie?
Yeah, I've got the same message as well. So whoever's got multiple users in the file, we'll all get the same message.
Perfect, excellent. So everyone should get this. Now, what we need to do is obviously for your firms is decide who should be dealing with synchronization conflicts whilst they're out on site. Is it going to be the person with the most seniority? Is it going to be the person just responsible for that financial statement area? For example, the stocks I'm working on, that maybe that's my responsibility. So again, that's up to you who's going to resolve these. Now, to resolve them, what we can do is we can either double click on this bubble here, or we can go to show conflicts. Now, if I click on the icon, what it will do is it will show me any document that we've got a conflict with. Now we can see here it says changes to document link G50. If I go down below here, you might, again, hopefully you might have to squint a little bit to see it, but there's a little warning triangle in the Excel icon there. I had to lean a bit closer as well to see that, next to G50. So there's another indicator here. Now, if I go to the screen, I can double click, and from here I'll be able to see all the versions of this document. I can see the current version, I can see the conflicting version, I can see the previous version. Okay, so the previous version is the first one that Georgie created, and that's the one which has Georgie's work, please keep. Then you've got my version, so I can click on view here, and I can say, okay, well, this is my version, Anti's work, so I can keep that over this side and go back into CaseWare, and then I can click onto Georgie's one. I can also view Georgie's, and Georgie's got, okay, Georgie's work, please keep. So she's kept her comment the same. So you can see we could keep both Excel documents. We don't lose either. Now, at this stage here, we could say that, okay, well, maybe Georgie's was the right one, or maybe mine was the right one, and we can make the decision on whose work we want to keep. So I'm going to say that mine was the right version. I'm not going to get many opportunities to discard my boss's work, so I'm going to say mine was the correct one. So I'm going to set mine as current. So if I click on confirm now, what that does is that now clears that conflict. Now, don't worry, if it actually turns out that Georgie's was the right version and we need to keep it, we don't lose that information, okay? Georgie's work isn't lost at this stage. All we've done at this stage is allocate what is the right Excel schedule. So we could make a mistake there, so we might want to reverse that and go back and change it to Georgie's version. Just to confirm, Georgie, if you open up obsolete stock now, can you see my version rather than yours?
Yes, it's your work, not mine.
Excellent. All right, so what we can do, if we wanted to change this in future, and we did want to go back to your work, Georgie, we could right click there. We can go to our show versions. And at this stage here, we could go through and select Georgie Walker and then set as current, and then press OK to confirm it. Now, I'm not going to do it on my machine. Georgie, could you go through and change that on yours and make yours the main version again, please? And then once you've done that, let me know. I will give it a couple of seconds. But what you should see at that stage is that I'm just trying to make it as transparent as possible so you guys can understand that we're both working on the same file at the same time. And those changes that Georgie are making are directly updating my file in a live environment. Okay, so how's that going?
That should be there. Yeah, I've set mine as the current version now.
Perfect, no pressure. Okay, so if I double click on this, then what we should be seeing is Georgie's work populate. There we go. Excellent. So that's flowed back on. So it's updating. Now, as mentioned earlier, I mean, it could be the case that Georgie's done some work on this file, I've done some work, and actually we need to put both of those changes into one document. So the advantage of this is that, as you can imagine, you can always access those previous versions. For anyone that's worried about file sizes getting larger and larger and larger because we're retaining these different versions, we can run the cleanup routine. We should be running the cleanup routine on our CaseWare files anyway. And as and when we do run this cleanup routine, it cleans those additional files at the year end. Okay, so if there's any guidance needed on that, please let us know, and we'll put that into the Q&A document at the end. All right. Okay, so just an additional little bit of a tip really on this as well when we're using SmartSync. I said to you earlier, this cloud button allows me to go through and open up a web portal. So it opens up my cloud instance. Now, if I click on it there, it's going to take a second or two to load, like any web browser. So just let that load through, and it comes through to my CaseWare cloud instance. Now, from my CaseWare cloud instance, what I can do is I can chat with Georgie. Now, this chat feature doesn't form part of your audit file anyway. It's just a tool for your staff to be able to talk to managers or other members of the team who maybe aren't on site or who may be in a warehouse or wherever it may be. But if I need something from Georgie, I can say, okay, again, clear this down, you can see we had a little practice run through earlier where I wrote a message to say, okay, Georgie, can you send me across the engagement letter? So I won't retype this out because you can already see this here. Now, these chats can be retained or they can be cleared. It's up to you. It's your firm preference to say whether these messages are retained on file, not on file within the cloud or not. It's a setting that we can modify. So at this point then, what we do is, Georgie, would you be able to provide me this engagement letter that I kindly asked you for on Monday? And would you be able to drop that into the documents manager for me? And if we go to documents manager here, you can see I've got a placeholder for my engagement letter. So Georgie, if you could drop that PDF into the engagement letter placeholder. There you go. Oh, there we go. See, one just went just above it. You can see that document that's came in there live. It might not have gone into the actual placeholder, but you can see that document just been dropped there.
You just can't get the assistance these days, can you?
Well, it is live, so we can't expect everything to run perfectly. Like you could probably imagine, I was not expecting to see the magic messages there early on the cloud. I thought they would have cleared down automatically, but they haven't in this instance. So it is live, guys. Things can go wrong, but we've got the placeholder there, and we've got the PDF. So I could double click this now and get access to this. Again, so for anything that we're using, we need guidance on. Whether it's your own internal documentation, engagement letters, checklists. If a member's team's in the office or working at home now, wherever they may be, they can drag and drop files into your CaseWare engagement using SmartSync, okay, making it a little bit easier. Now, the other area I just wanted to show you within conflicts, whilst we're here, and we have got a little bit of time, so if we just show you it quickly, is within adjusting entries, okay? The adjusting entries in here, if I just show you a journal that's already been set up, we've got our telephone and fax and prepayments. Okay, so if I wanted to make a change to this, we'll go through and just choose something else on here that we could have some prepayments for. So what we got in here? Prepayments of audit fees. Probably not, but we'll use that anyway. We can use that today. We can talk about audit, so may as well. We'll say there's 5,000 there that's been prepaid as audit fees. And put a credit symbol there. Brilliant. All right, so I've made that change to this journal. Now, what Georgie can do is also make a change to this journal. You won't see Georgie in the file, but Georgie, could you change that description for telephone prepayment to say telephone and audit fees prepayment? And also, if you could update the prepayment total to 7,300. And this is the bit that, again, it's very clever the way it works. You can just see there the descriptions updated to the telephone and audit fee prepayments, and then you can see the prepayments amounts also updated to 7,300. So you can both work on the file at the same time. And if you are concerned about people modifying journals accidentally whilst you're trying to prepare them, you can always deactivate or turn your file so it's offline. Okay, mark it as offline, and then no one can obviously modify them as you go through. But if you want to collaborate and work together at the same point, then you can see it's a really handy feature for us to work together. Okay, brilliant. Thanks for your help there, Georgie. What we'll do then is just quickly jump back onto the slides there. Ooh, and load those back up. I just want to see really if you guys at this stage, if there's any questions. So let me just load that up, and there we go. So that was a demonstration on clearing conflicts. Are there any questions on that at all, or is that clear for everyone? Tom, is there anything coming?
We haven't got any questions specifically relating to conflicts. We have got quite a few questions that have come in. I think what we're going to do, because we've got about 6 minutes left, is we'll just run the final poll, and then we'll have a look at the questions at the end. Okay, no problem. Yeah, perfect. And if you want to run the poll, and then we'll get onto the last bit of just removing the files from the cloud. So guys, we might overrun by a minute or two. Hopefully you don't mind that. But we do want to run through and show you how to remove the files from the cloud as well. So I'll pass you over to Tom just for that quick poll. Okay, so on conflicts, if you're familiar with conflicts before the webinar, or having seen the presentation that you just saw, yes or no, do you think that it is easy to clear conflicts? Okay, thanks very much. So actually, it's good news. 80% said yes, 20% no.
Okay.
So I'll hide the results there, and we'll go back to the presentation.
Good. I'm glad that again, for the majority of people, that's clear. It's not always clear for everyone though. Again, especially for people that haven't seen this, and remember from the start of the webinar, I think it was 40% of people hadn't seen SmartSync before. So if for new users, this will obviously it's new. So stick with it. If you do want any more help and guidance, then put it in the chat field and we'll try and put something together for you, or maybe have a chat after the webinar. Okay, so last demonstration, removing your file from the cloud. What do we need to do? Now, like any bit of software here, it can be used in different ways, and different firms might have different preferences for when we keep files in the cloud and when files are not in the cloud. Okay, so first of all, we'd always recommend you adhere to that firm guidance first. Now, in our scenario here, as you know, we've got myself and Georgie in a CaseWare cloud file. Okay, I know that I'm in it. I know Georgie's in it. One, because, well, we've just seen it, but also because the property screen here tells me. Now, there's another location that will also tell me who's in the file. It's called a SmartSync summary, and you can find that within your cloud instance. So we've got the cloud instance open down here. Remember, I used this button here, the cloud button, to activate it. I can go through to ABC Motor Company, and on there, if I scroll down, I can get to my files, my engagements. There we go. So this is the file that we're working on at the moment. Okay, so if I click on that, and then I'll go through to a file summary screen, and from here, if I scroll down, I can see my SmartSync summary, and I can see all the files that are in there. So effectively, then myself here and Georgie here, these are our files going out on site. Now, what we can do when we come back into the office, we could want to go through and remove these. Now, if you can't get hold of Georgie, Georgie's gone on holiday, she's taken a laptop with her, but we want to sever the link between Georgie's file and the cloud to make sure there's no more changes from Georgie's machine that can affect our live audit engagement. Then what we can do is we have the option up here to abandon sync copies, and I can abandon any copy here that I want. Okay, now at this stage here, I'm going to say that Georgie, we're not going to do that in this instance. I think if we just go through and delete our file in a standard way. Now, what some of you may have picked up on is up here on cloud, we've got a delete copy. This delete copy is solely relating to the copy that's on my local machine. Okay, so Georgie, would you mind selecting delete copy on your machine? And
No problem.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Super. I'm going to do the same on my machine as well, because you might see that I've got two copies. I've got a server copy as well. So I'm going to go click on delete mine as well. And what it will do is just going to go through and delete this file straight away from my machine. Okay. Now, once this file is deleted, CaseWare will close down, and I can go through and open up any other file. Now, at that stage, we know that I've got a separate file on my machine today, which is my server copy. So it's going to close out those. Let's go to my desktop, my server copy here. Oh, delete the wrong one. Delete the one in. There we go. Program files and CaseWare, and then go to data. And this is my sync one here. So I open that back up. So this is the one that we've got left now. So once I open this file up, it's going to need to sync some changes. So there we go. It's just loading through, rechecking to make sure it's synced, and it should load up in the file. Should see syncing down the bottom right. There we go. So now this is up to date with exactly the same version that we were working with a moment ago. If I go back to cloud now and then go to properties, you can see at this stage here, I've got the last version. Now it's still lagged. Mine hasn't quite caught up. Georgie's is still showing there. So just to double check that, we can go back to the cloud and we can look at that summary that I showed you. Okay. Now, once we get to that summary, all we need to do at this stage here is then determine what files do we want to retain a file on the server or not. So let this just quickly load. Once this is loaded, we should be able to confirm whether Georgie's also removed the file. I know you said you have, Georgie, but
yeah, it did take a little while, so it has been removed now.
Super, and that's been confirmed on this SmartSync summary here as well. We can see that's removed. We've now only got one copy left. Okay, So this one here is the one maybe we want to save onto our server. We want to keep this data set, but we don't want it to be linked with the cloud, to make sure that if we do change something on our local server, it doesn't affect the backup that we've got in the cloud. So at this stage here, what we can do is we can sever the link between this file and the cloud. So this is where we could use the abandon option. I said abandon sync copy, tick the box, select OK. Now at this point, what we should be seeing is a little message to say that we've been abandoned, that the sync copy has been abandoned. So now any change I make to this file, whether it's on the documents manager or the trial balance, will no longer sync up to the cloud entity. Okay, so they're now separate files. The last bit of work we need to do to make sure that CaseWare knows it's a separate file is just to clear these messages down. Now the way we do that is by closing down CaseWare. We go to our data set. So you saw the folder I opened up earlier. Now you can see at the top here I've got a new folder which is called sync. All I need to do is remove this folder. Now you could probably see that it's faded and slightly grayer than the other two icons. That's because to access this you have to show hidden items. Okay, but once you show hidden items and then select delete, that will allow me then to clear these messages down here. So if I just go no, go back, and now I should be able to delete it because the file's closed. There we go. If I reopen now, it will think it's now just a standard CaseWare file. It's no longer a SmartSync version, and you can open it up again on a standard version of CaseWare working papers. Okay, so hopefully that's clear, and you can see how to remove the files and abandon a copy. It all does come down to your firm preference, so you kind of want to build in our guidance around whatever your firm preferences are as you go through. All right, so with that then, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hand you back over to Tom, just to go through, see if we've got any other questions that have come in during the webinar. So I was going to go through and take you back to slides and just hand you over to Tom.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, so we've got a few questions. We're going to sprint through these because we are in extra time. But we did have one quite near the start of the webinar, which I was saving, which is, can the login be set to longer than 3,000 hours? I think that's the maximum, but I'm going to put you on the spot. Oh, we can't hear you, Tony.
Well.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I clicked the unmute technicals. You can't set it for more longer than 3,000 hours, no. 3,000 hours is quite a long time though, so hopefully that should be sufficient for most of you. If anyone does want any information or guidance on login and those preferences, then again, put something in the question field and we can send you over some guidance that's on the knowledge base. Okay, so there's some useful guidance already up there.
Okay, thank you. We've got two questions that I'm going to sort of roll into one, and that is, are SmartSync files held on the cloud backed up somewhere, and is there a limit to cloud storage? Okay,
the cloud storage is on a fair uses policy. Okay, so we can have as many CaseWare files up there as we need to. There's no restriction on data. It's just as a fair usage policy, and that is it. That's CaseWare UK stance on data. Regards to backups, we'll provide documentation or guidance within the Q&A document, just so you can see obviously what the backups are, the structures are, how you can get those, how they become available, and so on, how you can request them. Sorry, muttering away. But yeah, we'll leave those in the Q&A document at the end for you guys.
Thank you. So this is more of a general SmartSync question. Is there a SmartSync course?
Okay, I'll take that one. We do have a course on CaseWare Cloud that's available for any of our clients to sign up to via the website. So if you go to our website and the training page, if you scroll down to the online training courses, there's one there called CaseWare Cloud. It's free to sign up to. So if you work your way through that process, and you'll be able to then work through the course. There are lots of modules in there relating to CaseWare Cloud, but there is a particular one which relates to SmartSync. But we do also have an interactive SmartSync sort of getting started guide available on the knowledge base, and we'll just make sure that that's available to you. And we have included it on the slides here, I think, as well later on. So you'll be able to see a link to that.
Lovely, thank you, Georgie. We have got a couple of questions left over. So we've got one about year-end close and one about VPN. I think because we're 5 minutes over, we'll get back to you directly after the webinar. We'll include the answers to those in the Q&A document as well. But we'll just move on to the last couple of slides and let you get back to your day. So moving on to the next slide there, we do have a large selection of past webinars which we've recorded. A lot of you have probably seen those on the knowledge base. We are also adding those to YouTube now, so a CaseWare Client Services YouTube channel. We have playlists and we also have a collection of our webinar recordings on there. So if you go to our YouTube channel or CaseWare or the knowledge base, sorry, kv.caseware.co.uk, then you'll be able to see the recordings of those. Moving on to our future webinars, we do have quite a busy schedule coming up. So we've got a couple of slides worth of webinars listed here because we couldn't fit them all on the one. That starts with our Accounts Advanced EPAC update for 40403, and that's tomorrow. And if you want to see the agendas for our webinars and to register to attend, as you have done for today, go to caseware.co.uk/events, so the events page there. And we'll also keep you notified of future webinars on our LinkedIn page. We also have a Client Services LinkedIn page. So that brings us to the end of the broadcast. Thank you for your patience. We have run over by about 7 minutes, so apologies for that, but thank you for staying with us. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Keep an eye out for the additional content, and we'll notify you when the recording of the webinar is available, and you'll see the Q&A document with it as well. Take care, and we'll see you soon.